here on this magical mystery tour. No music on here. It's a mystery tour, though. 4 minutes to go till 1 o'clock. Well, thanks for stopping by. First of all, what's coming up this week on the Jazz Video Guide channel? Got some interesting videos this week. I found Soul Survivor says smoke some of what I am smoking. What are you smoking, Soul Survivor? Can you tell us the strain? Was it something you grew in your closet? Got it from the backyard? Did you buy it from the Mexican cartel? Please be more specific. Hopefully it's not crack. This is a weird week. I don't know, maybe some of you are fans or not. I am a huge fan of Gilbert Gottfried. Gilbert Gottfried is like the Salvador Dali of comedians. I am drawn to people who speak the truth and kind of like go as far as you can up against anything. And Gilbert Gottfried was one of those kind of people. It's very outrageous. He comedian, been in some movies, some stand-up. Many people know him from when he was on the Howard Stern show, although Howard Stern eventually kicked him off. Anyway, he passed away this week, 67 years old. It upset me, perhaps more so than other recent passings. I mean, one of the things in this life as we age is people leave us. The cast of characters changes. And he did not look good for the past couple of years. He came out here to Tucson a couple of years ago. I saw him very, very funny. Very, very, really funny. He left. And why did it upset me? Well, there are many people that I admire for speaking the truth. So it's a disappearing commodity. So that kind of messed me up this week. It surprised me. Anyway, Jazz Video Guide channel this week. I've got a really, really nice Joe Henderson thing. I'm a huge Joe Henderson fan. I have been when I was a kid. Let's see, this is going to go up Tuesday. First jazz I ever got was Lee Morgan, the Sidewinder, or one of the first ones. I was a trumpet player. Lee Morgan totally blew my mind. Still does. Still my favorite trumpeter. The tenor player on that recording was Joe Henderson, my introduction to Joe Henderson. And I loved his playing. I always have loved his playing. Many, many Blue Note recordings. I saw him in person a number of times. And actually, I got to be in the studio, in the recording studio, when Joe Henderson and McCoy Tyner recorded an album for Chesky Records. The name of it escapes me at the moment. Did the liner notes for it. I think it was Joe Henderson, McCoy Tyner, Al Foster, and Ron Carter. No, Ron Carter and Al Foster. Yeah. It was a great session. I'll never forget the session when McCoy and Joe were sitting around going through the reel book, trying to decide what to record next. And Joe said, "Oh, here's one of my tunes." McCoy said, "Oh, here's one of my tunes." They played great that day. Joe left us much too soon. He passed away in the early 2000s. Had kind of a career renaissance with Verve in the 90s. So he did George Gruntz, who's a fantastic German pianist, composer, arranger, has a big band. Joe did a thing with him several years before he passed. His tune, Inner Urge, which is the title tune of one of his best recordings, one of his great Blue Note recordings, with McCoy Tyner on piano. So I found a clip of Joe Henderson playing with George's big band. Really, really, really nice stuff. So that's coming up on Tuesday. Wednesday, a rare recording of the Charles Lloyd 60s Quartet, one of my favorite groups from the period. I think I've talked a million times about how when I heard Forest Flower, it blew my mind in 1967. It was a live recording from the Monterey Jazz Festival, 1966. Keith Jarrett, I don't know, 2022, something like that. So I've got like an extended performance at the Prague International Jazz Festival in '67 with Charles and Keith. They sound great, very unique group, very popular at the time. Charles Lloyd played the Fillmore, one of the rare jazz acts that did that in the late '60s, early '70s. So you could check that out on Wednesday. On Thursday, another excerpt from my documentary about anti-Semitism called "Why Is There So Much Hate on the Internet?" Part of the documentary features a section where I explore some of the different people and websites that generate a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism and a lot of hate. Some of you, probably most of you don't know, but there is an alternative to YouTube called BitChute. I'm going to put it here in the comments. Let me see here. http bitchute.com. And this is where people who are banned from YouTube go to post their videos. I mean, every nut in the world is on there. Every conspiracy theorist, every fountain of hate. And it's at this point, it's hardly shocking, but it's growing. I mean, there's a lot of videos on there, and there's a lot of lunatics on there, and there's a lot of people watching it. And YouTube is pretty good about policing hate on YouTube. But there are sites like BitChute where the hate mongers go and they post their videos. And one of the things that's happened in the past 25 years with the lowered cost of video production and the introduction of the smartphone and free global distribution is that everybody's a filmmaker now. People who have the most outrageous, negative, hateful things to say manage to make videos and post them on sites like BitChute. And a lot of people like that. A lot of people watch those things. Not me, but it's part of my research. I focused on 3 people who regularly post videos on BitChute. In this case, anti-Semites. Something that disgusts me. I made a film about it. Just another example of the hate that exists today. And on the opposite side of the coin, Friday's 26th episode of the Michael Brecker podcast, A Remarkable Human Being. More from my extended interview with saxophonist Michael Pattison, who grew up with Michael. Actually, he's 3 years older, but they're both from Philly. He talks more about Michael had a lot of incredible qualities, but as a person, he was very special, very humble. Somebody who played so well, so great, just got better and better until he met with an early demise due to an illness that could not be dealt with. So Michael talks about that. I think I got one more with Pattison, and then Bob Mintzer takes over. I did an interview with Bob Mintzer. So that's what's coming up on Jazz Video Guide this week. I hope you'll check some of them out. Please leave your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your compliments, all the different things that people leave in the comments on YouTube. I want to talk today about a little problem that exists today and that's the fact that people do not want to pay for music anymore. Uh, this started, I touched upon this a little bit last week, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more today. It kind of started, I think, well, the internet has always been, from the beginning, a place where people go to get stuff and don't pay for it. It started, well, I'll post some content on, the internet, be it music or writing or whatever it is, to build an audience, and then I'll figure out how to monetize that. Oh, comment from Soul Survivor. Jazz artists who pass away managed to do something few individuals accomplished. They left a mark. That is so true. People have been dead for decades. They live on the internet. They live on YouTube. It's incredible. They're not really recognized in their time. A lot of them aren't recognized in the United States. Jazz, the genre of music, jazz, is much more appreciated outside the United States. But the internet, once again, getting back to my subject here about free content. And for music, originally, when the internet first got started, there was no audio, there was no video. It was just text and images. And then it just grew like crazy. And then the advent of this thing called the MP3 file, which took a file of music, a digital file, and compressed it in a way that it was small enough to be transportable over the internet, over email, so people could share it, people could post it. And I guess it was 98, 99, the first what were called file sharing services, where people were sharing files. There was a entity called Napster. That's when it exploded, when people had this technology to share files between their computers. You didn't need a website. You actually connected to other people's computers anonymously. And all of a sudden, you were able to get all this music. And people justified the free aspect of it by saying, the record labels have ripped us off for years, charging I guess at its height, people were paying, $18 for a CD, something like that. I only want one song. I got to buy the entire CD. People were angry at record labels. So this file sharing thing took off like a bull. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Overnight, millions and millions of people were file sharing. They weren't paying for the music. The record labels flipped out. Initially, what they did was they hired lawyers. They had lawyers on staff, many of them. And they went after the file sharers. When you're on the internet, you have what's called an IP address. Each computer has a unique address. And there are ways to mask that so people can't see it now. But back then, people didn't know about that. And your internet service provider could easily trace what you were doing. In fact, a lot of people now use an IP address, a virtual address, a hidden address, so that people can't track you, they can't follow you, your internet service provider can't see what you're doing. But back then, late 90s, the early 2000s, very easy to track. And they started not arresting, but suing people. You downloaded one song, you stood the chance of a $5,000 fine. Now, what they should have done was figure out a way to utilize the technology to better distribute the music. But instead, they fought them like crazy. And then Steve Jobs came along and they developed iTunes. That was the first real store where you could buy digital files. So instead of buying a whole recording, you could buy just a file. 99 cents, $1.29, reasonable price. The labels were a little slow to adapt to that. And people became more angry. All those fucking record labels, they ripped us off for many years. Who cares? I'll take my chances. They're probably not going to catch me. And like all this music went out there for free. And suddenly people, since 2000, there are many people, several generations of people that just don't pay for music anymore. Because human nature tells us, if I can get it for free, why should I pay for it at all? Well, you do get it for free. And YouTube is one of the biggest violators of this. YouTube is good with censoring their content when it comes to hate speech. But in terms of music, no. Now, initially, when YouTube started in 2005, it really started to take off in 2006. If you used music, like if you made a video and you used copyrighted music in the video, you would receive a takedown notice from YouTube and possibly the termination of your YouTube account. Nevertheless, and then also some corporate entities like Warner Brothers and Viacom, which eventually took over CBS, one of these mega media companies. And they went after people on YouTube. But because YouTube got so big, it became impossible to go after everyone. So YouTube said, well, we make some money from your videos. We'll give you a taste. And then also, if someone puts up a video that has your music in it, your copyrighted music, you will receive the proceeds from the ad sales. YouTube is largely an advertiser-driven medium website. So the copyright holders the music stays up there. The person who posts the music doesn't make money from it. The record labels or the giant companies make money from it. But the musicians don't. Most musicians make nothing from YouTube whatsoever. Of course, the people who listen to the music, people who post the music, don't really think about that. No, I think most people and you can find just about anything on YouTube, any kind of recording, individual tracks or a complete recording. And people who post the music, they do it because they're enthusiastic about the music. They're not looking for financial gain. I don't think they realize that the musicians don't get anything from it. When YouTube started, the record labels still existed, and they negotiated digital rights agreements where the label and the composer got 95% of the royalties. The individual artist who recorded the music got nothing. So that's not good. How do musicians survive? I'll get into that in a sec. But I mentioned that people who post music on YouTube do because they love the music. There is a guy on YouTube who started posting a couple years ago. Mr. Mister is his name. I'll put up a link in the description to this video. He posts 2 or 3 times a week complete albums of things that just haven't come out on CD, old LPs. I guess he must have a hellified collection. And invariably, great stuff from a wide selection of artists. I mean, I listen to those all the time. I have a pretty extensive library of music that I've assembled over the years, but I don't have everything. But this guy has, wow. And it's great. It's fantastic. Once again, The musicians get zero, nothing from this. So this week I started to do some interviews with people uh, involved with the music to talk about the present situation, how difficult it is for musicians to survive. I mean, COVID has been very, very difficult for musicians. You haven't been able to do gigs. It just started to come back in the past couple months, but a lot of places, a lot of venues went out of business. Um, although some people were able to figure out a way through that. For example, Smalls, even when the club was closed, Spike Wilder was doing live streams and paying people to do them. And people were contributing money, not a lot, but something. So how do musicians survive? So I've started talking to some people. I talked to my friend Jason Miles. Jason is not really that well known, better known to musicians. He, a New York-based guy who got it together on the synthesizer early on, developed a way to make some unique voicings, and came up with Marcus Miller. And Marcus hired him to work on some Miles Davis recordings. And Jason got close to Miles. And Miles in his later years was using synthesizers and stuff. So Jason did that, and he worked with Roberta Flack and Luther Vandross, and he's led his own groups. And he talks about in his interview. I'll link it here. You can watch it. He talks about what's it like today. Do you notice a difference? And of course, Of course, he notices a difference because his income has been cut dramatically. And really, the only way he can make money from selling his music is at a gig. That's where a lot of musicians today, they make money by selling recordings, CDs, those people who still listen to CDs, at a gig. And I mean, think about it this way: even if you sell your music on iTunes, if iTunes sells a track for $1.29 and they take 60%, how much are you going to make? 35 cents from a recording? You got to sell a lot of files to make anything. Spotify, you need to have like 10,000 streams a month or something like that to make $100. I mean, I don't know the exact formula, but somebody like Beyonce or Megan Thee Stallion, or people in the what's considered popular music today, they do pretty good on a site like Spotify or Amazon Music because a lot of people listen to their music. But Joe Henderson, he's not with us anymore to collect his royalties. His music is not being played on a consistent basis. He's not making any money. Now, Soul Survivor makes an interesting point here. He says, before the internet, if you purchased a radio or any other device, you acquired access to content without additional cost. The industry always got the lion's share. He said loin share. No, lion, not loin. Lions have loins, though, don't they? Yes. I have loins, too. But I'm not a lion. Although I'm a Leo, so I'm a lion in some ways. Anyway, the music business has always been one of great inequity. Sonny Rollins once told me only one thing worse than the music business, and that's the boxing business. Labels ripped off artists. What they did was, though, that they recorded a lot of music and they got it out there. Now it's up to an individual to get their music out there themselves. Overcrowded marketplace, fewer people actually listening to music. The second interview I did was with my cousin, David Chesky. David is a soul survivor. English is your language. Soul survivor. What is your language? Please enlighten us. And don't mind me if I make jokes about what you write. I just see things from a humorous perspective. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. If you heard my Spanish, you'd be laughing. 4 weeks from today, I'll actually be arriving in Mexico. I'm relocating to Mexico. Hold on a second here. Another hit of Pepto-Bismol. So David Chesky, in his interview, he talks about how music has become a background for most people because of all these different diversions. He says people listen to music when they're on the internet, they're on a phone conversation. They don't take music seriously anymore. And he makes a good point about how people are willing to pay $5 for a cup of coffee, a few coffee beans and some hot water. That's $5 now. But music, people won't pay even $1.29 to buy a file because they get it for free. Why should they have to? Why human nature? Why should I pay for it? And this is not good. What's the answer to this? I don't know. I don't have the answer at this moment. I do know that there are a lot of really, really talented young musicians out there. I was having a conversation this morning with my friend Ted Pankin. Some of you may know Ted. He's a jazz writer. You can find his writing in Downbeat and I think Jazz Times and other places. And used to be on the air in New York City on WKCR. And Ted is in New York City, where I used to live, and he's in the middle of all the activity. And there are no shortage of talented young musicians out there. I mean, this music that we call jazz, I'm not crazy about that word, but it does something. It moves something in people where they want to play it. They want to play it with other people, and they want to go to New York City, and they want to become part of that whole thing. Although there's fewer jazz clubs than there were 20 years ago, and certainly it's not no day at the beach to make a living as a musician, but they're there and they're expanding the music. There's all kinds of things happening. I am not in touch with that out here in Arizona and soon to be in Mexico, but Ted was telling me about different artists I never even heard of that are just doing really interesting things, really cool things based on the tradition that we come from Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Duke Ellington and John Coltrane and Miles Davis. That's the foundation of this music. But what people do with music today, an entirely different thing. So I'm glad to hear that, but I still have some concern. My cousin David Chesky says that he tells his children, it's good to be a creator, but forget about making money from it. Do it because you dig it, because it's something you want to do. And that is true for many people now. They cannot make a living from the music. They make some money, they make a few bucks, but they're driven to create this music. They're driven to be part of the community. It's exciting to play this music. It's exciting to play in a group. You work at it, tremendous, what's the word I'm looking for here? It escapes me at this moment. Richard says, arts are severely underfunded now. Before there was a subsidy, now it's all gone. It's still available in Europe. You know, my friend Bob Mintzer he's the principal conductor and arranger now for the WDR Big Band. This is a German radio orchestra. In Europe, there are a lot of radio orchestras, these organizations that play in the Netherlands as well, where they fund the music. Certainly nothing like that happening in the United States, which is kind of sad. I mean, every time the Congress wants to cut money, they say, "Oh, we're going to cut the the National Endowment for the Arts. We're going to cut out that Jazz Masters program. It's still there, though. Somehow it keeps hanging on. That's really the only government program that recognizes the music. Jazz musicians used to play in the White House. Trump put an end to that. That's for sure. He didn't have any music. Oh, Kid Rock, I think, played at the White House. That was it. Nevertheless, against this somewhat bleak backdrop of difficulty to survive, some great music is being played out there. I say support it by going to hear music live if you can. Even if you buy one track a month, one CD a month, do something to support musicians. A lot of musicians they have GoFundMe pages, they have Patreon pages. It's difficult to make money as a content creator on the internet. I make a little bit of money. I certainly don't make a living doing it. So I'm going to continue to put up these videos, these interviews with musicians about the current state of the music business. It's kind of a oxymoron to put those two words together. The jazz industry. Jazz and industry, that doesn't work, but it does exist. Yesterday I did an interview with David Liebman, a veteran musician who's very involved in jazz education. And we talk about what it's like to make a living today, how it works. And we also talk about jazz education. I'm probably going to post that next week, not this coming week. I'm going to go out and interview other people as well. How do you survive? How do you earn a living doing this? Maybe you teach, maybe you write arrangements, maybe you do soundtracks, maybe you license your music. This is the reality of being a music in our society today. It's in America. Thank you, Richard, for the compliment about my 1970s movie from film school, Rough Ride. I made that in 1971. I went to NYU Film School. I was very lucky to study with the great Martin Scorsese, and I made a movie for his class. At that time, I was driving a cab at night, going to school during the daytime, and I made a movie called Rough Ride, which, happy to say, holds up many, many years later. Thanks for tuning in to today's freewheeling stream of consciousness session here. Please check out some of the videos that I'm going to be posting this week. Please support our music. Go to hear it live. Buy it if you can. I mean, I still buy music. I'm doing a episode of the Michael Brecker podcast where Bob Mintzer talks about the first band that Jocko put together after he left Weather Report. Featured Michael Brecker and Bob Mintzer on tenors. And they recorded a concert that ended up being released called The Birthday Concert that I did not have a copy of. And I bought it, and it's fantastic. It was a fantastic group. Jocko's first word of mouth big band with Brecker, Michael Brecker, and Bob Mintzer and Peter Erskine. And right after that gig down in Florida, Michael Brecker went into rehab. He got himself together. I talk about that in an earlier episode of the podcast series. Want to know more about Brecker? Please check out Bill Mulkowski's book, Ode to a Tenor Titan. Fantastic. Bill also did a book on Jaco Pastorius. So that's enough for me today. Here's a toast to a better stomach for me, I hope. Thanks for your support of my work, and I'll see you next Sunday with some more thoughts and previews. Stay healthy, stay happy, and try to love each other a little bit more. Bye-bye.